Humans are newcomers to the galactic community, still seen as weak, emotional, and dangerous. The main human character, Ethan, arrives as a low-rank human env. The tension is thick. Alien races watch every move he makes. Then she appears, a human woman named Lena, part of a science team. The moment Ethan sees her, something inside him breaks and awakens at the same time. He feels it instantly: love, fear, hope. He does not say a word, he does not move. But across the chamber, an alien woman notices. Her name is Velzira, a high-ranking alien from a race that can read emotional energy. Her species believes emotions are weaknesses. Yet when she looks at Ethan, she senses something ancient and powerful. A human emotion so strong it shocks her. She realizes this human has bonded. In the galaxy, emotional bonding like this has started wars before. Welcome to my channel Sci-Fi Love Story. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Ethan stood at the edge of the Great Arrival Hall of Kepra Station, surrounded by walls of living metal that slowly shifted and breathed, as if the station itself was watching him. The air was cold and thin, carrying strange scents from 100 alien worlds, and every step he took echoed too loudly, reminding everyone present that a human had entered a place not built for humans. He kept his back straight, even though his heart was beating hard inside his chest, because he knew the eyes upon him were not friendly. The Galactic Council chamber was filled with beings of every shape and size: tall insect forms with shining wings, massive stone-skinned giants, floating beings made of light and mist. And at the center sat the elder races, calm, ancient, and powerful humans were new to this galaxy. And not welcome. Ethan was only a junior envoy chosen, because he could follow orders and stay quiet. He was told again and again that humans must not show emotion, must not provoke fear, must not stand out. So he focused on his breathing and waited. Then the doors opened again and everything changed. She walked in quietly with a small group of human scientists, her boots touching the floor with a soft sound, her hair tied back, her eyes focused and calm. Her name was Lena. And the moment Ethan saw her, his careful control shattered. Something deep inside him stirred like a sleeping star waking up. He felt warmth rush through his chest and into his arms. His breath caught for a moment, and he forgot where he was. The watching aliens forgot the danger. All he saw was her, alive, bright, real, in a place that felt dead and hostile. He had never believed in love at first sight. He had always thought it was a story people told themselves. But this was different. This was instant and terrifying, because it was real. And because he knew it made him weak, he forced his face to stay still. But his eyes betrayed him for just a second, and that second was enough. Across the hall, Velzira noticed she was tall and slender, her skin dark like polished stone with faint glowing lines that moved with her thoughts. Her eyes were sharp and silver, and her kind were known as the Viex, a species that could sense emotional energy, not thoughts, not words, but raw feeling. They believed emotion was a flaw, something to be controlled or removed. And when Velzira looked at Ethan, she expected to feel nothing but fear or nervous tension. Instead, she felt a sudden surge of something powerful, something focused and deep. It struck her like a wave, and she stiffened slightly, hiding her reaction from the others. She turned her attention fully to the human male and watched him closely. Ethan tried to calm himself, but every time Lena moved, his heart reacted, his body leaned toward her without him noticing, and his mind filled with thoughts of safety and warmth and protection, feelings he had no right to feel. Here Lena took her place among the scientists, unaware of the storm she had caused. The council began speaking in layered voices, discussing trade, borders, and defense agreements. Their words washed over Ethan without meaning, because part of him was locked on Lena like gravity, holding him in place. Velzira listened with half her mind, while the other half studied the human. She saw how his pulse quickened when Lena shifted, how his posture changed subtly to face her, how his emotional energy spiked whenever another being moved too close to the human woman. Understanding formed slowly, and it unsettled her. Bonding. She realized the human had bonded. Instantly, an uncontrolled emotional attachment formed in seconds, something her people believed impossible without ritual and time in the galaxy. Such bonds had led to destruction. Entire fleets lost, worlds burned, because one being threatened another being, someone loved. Velzira felt a flicker of something like fear, but she crushed it and rose to address the council. Her voice was calm and cold as she questioned the presence of humans here, asking whether such an unstable species should be trusted. Ethan felt her attention like a blade, but he did not look away from Lena. He only prayed silently that nothing would happen, that no one would see what he felt. The council murmured, uncertain. Some aliens agreed, others watched with curiosity. Humans had already surprised them with their fast learning and stubborn survival. But emotion was another matter. Velzira stepped down from the platform and approached Ethan slowly, her movements smooth and deliberate. She circled him, as if inspecting prey. Her voice was low and sharp as she spoke directly to him, asking if humans always stared so intensely at their own kind. Ethan swallowed and forced himself to answer politely, saying he was only ensuring the safety of his team. His words were correct, but his emotion betrayed him, and Veil Zira felt it again, that fierce protective drive. She leaned closer and whispered that such feelings could be dangerous. Here Ethan met her gaze for the first time and saw not hatred but calculation and something else. Curiosity mixed with concern, she stepped back and made a silent decision. The council session continued, but tension hung heavy then. Without warning, the station shuddered. Alarms howled through the halls, lights dimmed and turned red. The calm order shattered as voices rose and security forces moved. Reports flooded in. Hostile ships had dropped out of warp too close for comfort. Unknown configuration, aggressive posture. The station defenses activated, but failed one by one. Too fast, too precise. Panic spread among the lesser races. Lena and her team tried to evacuate, but explosions tore through the outer sectors, sealing corridors and venting atmosphere. Ethan heard Lena cry out over the comm, her voice cut by static, fear sharp and real. It pierced him deeper than any weapon. Without thinking, he ran, ignoring shouted orders, alarms, and danger. Veil Zira watched him go, and for the first time in her long life, she felt something she could not name as the human ran toward destruction, driven by nothing but love. And the story of what humans truly were began to unfold. Ethan stood at the edge of the vast arrival hall of Kepra Station, surrounded by towering walls of living metal that slowly shifted and pulsed like a massive sleeping creature. The air was thin, cold, and filled with unfamiliar scents drawn from 100 alien worlds. Every step he took echoed far too loudly, marking him as an outsider, and reminding everyone present that a human had entered a place never meant for humans. His spine stayed straight by force of will, even as his heart hammered hard in his chest, because he could feel the weight of alien eyes watching, measuring, judging, some filled with curiosity, others with open distrust. The Galactic Council chamber spread out before him, glowing with strange lights and energy fields, filled with beings of every possible form, towering insectoids with crystal wings, folded tight, massive stone-skinned giants who barely moved, floating entities made of light and mist. And at the center, the Elder Ra. CES, ancient, calm and powerful, their presence pressed down like gravity. Humans were newcomers here, tolerated, but never trusted. Ethan was a junior env, chosen not for brilliance or strength, but for obedience. He had been trained to speak little, to show nothing, to never let emotion surface, because emotion made humans dangerous in the eyes of the galaxy. So he controlled his breathing, slowed his pulse, and waited. Then the doors opened again with a deep resonant sound, and everything changed. A small group of human scientists entered, led by a woman who walked with quiet confidence. Her boots made soft contact with the floor, her shoulders were squared, her face calm and focused, her hair pulled back in a simple tie, and her eyes sharp with curiosity. Her name was Lena, and the moment Ethan saw her, the careful walls he had built inside himself collapsed. Something deep inside him ignited like a spark, touching dry fuel. Warmth surged through his chest, spreading fast. His breath caught heartbeat. The station disappeared, the council vanished, the danger faded, and all that existed was her, standing there, alive, human and real, in a place that felt cold and hostile. He had never believed in love at first sight. He had dismissed it as fantasy or weakness. But this was instant and overwhelming, and it terrified him, because he knew how exposed it made him. His face stayed still through training alone, but his eyes lingered a fraction too long, and that single moment was enough across the chamber veil. Zira noticed. She was tall and slender, her skin dark like polished obsidian, marked with faint glowing lines that shifted with her inner state. Her silver eyes missed nothing. She belonged to the Viox, a race feared and respected for their ability to sense emotional energy. Not thoughts, not words, but raw feeling. They believed emotion was a flaw, a weakness to be controlled or removed. And when Veil Zira first turned her attention to the human male, she expected only surface anxiety or nervous tension. Instead, she was struck by a sudden surge of powerful, focused emotion, so intense it made her pause. The energy was sharp, warm and deep, like a star burning inside fragile flesh. Her posture stiffened for just a moment before she masked it and studied him more closely. Ethan felt nothing of her reaction, his awareness locked onto Lena as she moved to join the other scientists. Every small motion pulled at him. His body leaned toward her without conscious thought, his mind filled with images of safety, warmth and protection, feelings he had no right to feel. Here Lena was unaware of the effect. She had her attention fixed on the council and the technology surrounding them. The session began, layered alien voices discussing borders, trade and defense, but the words flowed past Ethan, meaningless noise, because his focus remained anchored to Lena. Veil Zira listened with only part of her mind. While the rest examined the human, she observed how his pulse quickened when Lena shifted how his stance subtly angled toward her, how the emotional energy around him spiked whenever another being moved too close to the human woman. Realization came slowly, and it unsettled her deeply. The human had formed an emotional bond instantly, uncontrolled and powerful, something her people believed impossible without ritual and long preparation across the galaxy. Such bonds had ignited wars, entire fleets had burned, because someone threatened another being someone loved. Veil Zira felt something dangerously close to fear, but crushed it down and rose to address the council, her voice calm, controlled and cold, as she questioned the wisdom of allowing humans further access to shared space, citing instability and unpredictability. Ethan felt her attention cut across him like a blade, but he forced himself to remain still, his only silent prayer that Lena would remain safe, unseen, unnoticed. The council murmured, divided. Some elders shared Veil Zira concerns. Others watched the humans with interest. Humanity had already surprised the galaxy with their rapid learning and stubborn refusal to die, but emotion was another matter. Veil Zira stepped down from the platform and approached Ethan, her movement smooth, deliberate, predatory. She circled him slowly, as if inspecting a volatile device, her voice low and sharp, as she spoke, asking whether humans always stared so intensely at their own kind. Ethan swallowed hard and answered, carefully, saying he was ensuring the safety of his team. His words were technically true, but emotion does not lie. And Veil Zira felt the fierce protective drive radiating from him. She leaned closer and whispered that such feelings could bring destruction. Here Ethan finally met her gaze and saw not hatred, but calculation mixed with something unexpected, concern. She straightened and stepped back, making a silent decision. The session resumed, but tension thickened the air. Then without warning the station shuddered violently. Alarms screamed through every corridor, lights dimmed, and flared red. Calm shattered into chaos. Voices rose in panic. Security forces mobilized. Reports flooded in. Hostile vessels had dropped from warp at close range. Unknown origin, aggressive configuration. The station defenses activated, but failed one by one. Too fast, too precise. Explosions rocked the outer sectors, corridors sealed and atmosphere vented. Lena and her team tried to evacuate, but debris blocked their path and flames tore through the passage. Ethan heard Lena scream over the comm, fear sharp and real, before the signal cut out. Something inside him snapped training orders, and reason vanished without thought. He ran, ignoring commands, alarms and danger. Veil Zira watched him sprint toward collapsing sections, unarmed, driven by nothing but love. And for the first time in her long, controlled life, she felt awe as she realized the galaxy had misunderstood humans entirely, and the true danger was not their weapons, but what they became when someone they loved was threatened. Ethan ran through the shaking corridors of Kepra Station, as if the world behind him no longer existed. Alarms screamed around him, walls split, and sealed lights flickered, casting harsh shadows across broken metal and drifting smoke. His lungs burned from the thin air and his muscles screamed, but he did not slow because Lena was ahead, somewhere trapped, afraid and calling his name, even if she did not know it. Yet debris fell from the ceiling and struck his shoulder, tearing fabric and skin. But pain meant nothing now. Every step was driven by a single thought: reach her, protect her, bring her back alive. Behind him, Veil Zira followed at a distance, her long strides effortless, her senses fixed on the human male, and what she felt from him stunned her. The emotional energy pouring from Ethan was no longer just attachment. It had transformed into something vast and focused, a storm of willpower and intent that drowned out fear. Her species had studied thousands of races, catalogued their strengths and flaws, yet she had never felt anything like this. The human body show Ulda failed by now, oxygen loss, trauma, stress, overload, yet Ethan pushed forward with terrifying determination. As explosions tore through nearby sectors, enemy boarding parties breached the station. Sleek armored figures moving with cold precision. Security forces fell back, overwhelmed. The council chamber was evacuated in chaos, but Ethan did not turn toward safety. He plunged deeper into danger, following the last known signal from Lena. He reached a collapsed junction sealed by twisted metal. Fire on the other side, he could hear faint movement, and a weak human voice calling for help. It was Lena. Her fear spiked, and with it Ethan's strength surged. He grabbed a bent support beam, far too heavy for a normal human, and pulled, muscles tearing, bones straining, but the metal groaned and shifted enough for him to squeeze through. Flames licked his skin, blistering it, but he did not stop. Inside the corridor, Lena lay, trapped beneath fallen equipment, blood on her forehead, her breathing shallow. Relief flooded her eyes when she saw him, and she tried to speak, but coughed instead. Ethan dropped to his knees, ignoring the heat, and lifted the wreckage inch by inch, until it gave way. He pulled her free, holding her close, shielding her, as another explosion rocked the station. Veil Zira arrived just in time to witness it all. Her senses reeled as the emotional output doubled when Ethan held Lena. It was no longer one-sided, it became a loop, her fear easing, his strength rising, feeding back into itself. A closed circuit of power. Veil Zero understood then that human bonding was not just emotion, it was amplification. Together, they became more than their parts. Enemy troops rounded the corner, weapons raised. But they hesitated when they saw the human male standing, bloodied, unarmed, eyes burning, with raw intent. Something in his posture radiated danger. Veil Zero stepped forward, her voice sharp, commanding, ordering the attackers to retreat. She did not know why they obeyed, but they did, sensing something wrong, something they could not quantify. The corridor shook again, structural failure, imminent evacuation routes collapsing. Veil Zero opened a secured path through her command codes, leading them toward an emergency launch bay. As they moved, Ethan never released Lena, even when his legs faltered. He carried her without complaint, his body running far beyond safe limits. They reached the bay just as the station defenses finally surged back online, alien warships responding, driving the hostile fleet away. Escape pods launched in waves. Ethan and Lena boarded the last pod as the bay collapsed behind them. The pod detached, spinning into space. Silence fell, broken only by their breathing. Ethan finally collapsed unconscious. His body spent. Lena held him, tears floating free in zero gravity. Veil Zero watched through the viewport, her expression unreadable. Later, as rescue vessels collected survivors, the council reconvened, shaken, damaged, but alive. Veil Zero stood before them and delivered her report. She spoke not of tactics or casualties, but of what she had witnessed, a human driven by love, exceeding physical limits, reshaping probability itself to save one life. She warned them that humans were not weak, not unstable, but uniquely dangerous, because when bonded they would sacrifice everything, and in doing so become unstoppable. The council listened in silence. Records were updated, classifications changed, humanity status revised from minor species to emergent existential force. Ethan awoke days later in a medical bay, Lena at his side, holding his hand, unaware that their moment had rewritten galactic doctrine. Veil Zero observed from a distance, no longer wary, but respectful, knowing the galaxy would never see humans the same way again, and that this was only the beginning.